Welcome back to the Capes and Tights podcast right here on capesandtights.com. I'm your host, Justin Soderberg. Once again, this episode is brought to you by our friends over at Galactic Comics and Collectibles at galacticcomicsandcollectibles.com. We welcome back Clay McLeod Chapman to the podcast to discuss his upcoming novel, Shiny Happy People. We also talked a little bit about Wake Up and Open Your Eyes, which came out earlier in the year. Acquired Taste, which came out recently. And then next year, he has 2 books coming out, including his horror romance book, The Devil Inside, that comes out next summer. But Clay, who writes books, comics, all kinds of things, is an awesome person. And I'm glad he was able to return to the podcast to chat Shiny Happy People. But before you listen, check us out on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, Blue Sky, and Threads, all those places. You can rate, review, subscribe over on Apple or Spotify or wherever you find your podcast, as well as you can find a video portion of this podcast over on YouTube. And as always, check out capesandtights.com for so much more. We just completed last week our horror week. So check out all the horror fun things that we did on the website last week at capesandtights.com. But this is Clay McLeod Chapman returning to the podcast once again to chat Shiny Happy People. Enjoy, everyone. How are you, Clay?
I'm okay.
You're okay. You're okay.
I'm okay. Yeah, I'm okay. I'm hanging in there, man. I'm
in there?
alive.
You got your Jared Leto bird.
That's what I got.
Your Jared
Oh
Leto
my
bird
God.
somewhere. So it's funny.
Well, he's up in my office.
How often does this happen?
I'm in my
like
wife's office.
How often do you think this happens for me? Probably never, or rarely. I mean, like my buddy who Paul Eaton, who's from Galactic Comics and Collectibles, who you met back in May. When he comes on the podcast, I usually had seen him Tuesday, and I see him. I talk next Monday or something like that, and we were like we can see each other, but like rarely. I would say this is episode like 253 or something like that, and rarely do I see the person I'm talking to have like within a week of when so I saw you Wednesday in New Hampshire, which was fantastic, and that's where the Jared Little bird came from. If anybody ever, you had to be there, kind of thing. But our buddy Jesse, who's been on the podcast,
what the heck are you talking about, bro?
Jesse, who drew that, has been on the podcast. He was actually at Galacticon.
Yeah,
he was like you were on one side of our
well, that's
he was on
like,
the other side.
That was the whole kind of like point. He was
Yeah.
like talking about like.
It's amazing. And just to have him show up, it was cool. Like I saw Matt Morris from Instagram, famous Matt Morris, and I saw Jesse. It was a fun time. Gibson's is always amazing. They are a wonderful place to be, right? Do you agree?
How far did you have to drive to get there?
It's a 3-hour drive. Well, that's it. But Clay, I'm from Maine. I drive 35 minutes to get to my office. It's like that's like nothing. So like 3 hours is like, oh, it's whatever. People do it there and back. I didn't do it there and back. I spent the night. I got a hotel. I have a hookup for a hotel, so I got a good deal on a hotel. And maybe one of these days I get a better deal if I start promoting the hotel. Actually talking about the hotel. Like I don't want to say what hotel it was because I don't want to give them free marketing. But like it was a good deal. It was a good hotel. It was busy. I don't know why. It was a Wednesday night and like my parking lot I couldn't find a parking spot. I almost had to park on like the grass in the parking lot. It was crazy. But yeah, it's been a fun
because
time.
everybody was there for the CJ
Exactly.
Lee, Clay Chapman, Delilah.
Everybody was there to see
Dawson
Delilah S. Dawson. That was it. No one wanted to see either one of you two. It was, let's be honest. Let's really be honest. No, it was kind of funny because like I've been to events there. I saw Christopher Golden there at Gibson's and with Eric Nunnally, and it was phenomenal. That was a phenomenal event too. But I worked it technically because I did it for the beer for my brewery that I worked for. And so this one was great because I could just sit there and hang out and chat and watch Delilah's birthday cake come out and Jared Golden, or not Jared Golden, Jared Golden, Jared Leto, Bird getting drawn, and see you and CJ and Delilah. It was an awesome time. So I'm glad it happened, and I'm glad I went. And I was tired when I got back, but I'll tell you what, it was fun. And I drove back to the White Mountains on Thursday. So I went up to the White Mountains and did that kind of thing, and stopped in North Conway and did my own little vacation from the kids and the family and work and stuff like that. So it was good. Went to another bookstore. So it was 10 bookstores in 2 days.
You're a sadist, man. You're a masochist. You're just like,
what? I don't get to do it that often, so I have to do it all at one time.
Cram it all in.
Cram it all into one thing. No, I like listening to audiobooks. So on the way back, I listened to Shit Show which was phenomenal. I mean, I don't know if you've read that yet. It's
Hmm.
phenomenal. And then I also, what did I listen to? I listened on the way down. I listened to Guillotine by Delilah S. Dawson, which was phenomenal. And what else would I read on the way back? I don't remember what I read on the way back now. I don't remember. It is a long time ago. It was last week. What are you talking about? A lot of stuff happened since then. But we're not here to talk about my
It was a
trip
whole
to New
lifetime ago.
Hampshire. We're here to talk about how you're a veteran horror author getting ready. Oh,
Veteran, I'm old now.
veteran.
Like
Yeah.
I've already like entered my
Yeah.
kind of like golden years.
Well, how many books did you say to
What is
CJ
it?
that you had
When
written?
you're old?
30? 30? Are you up to 30?
No, Delilah's up to 30. I'm just like 14,
15?
15.
Yeah, somewhere around
So
there. So that's that's
yeah,
that's that's
I'm
veteran
just a scrappy
territory.
young buck.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. No, I think that you're getting up there, and you're an acquired taste, like the pun. Just there you go, acquired taste. This is Lance's copy. This is the copy I sent for Lance, who helps run Galacticon. He was very. He's like, "You're going to
Oh,
see Clay? Get him to sign my book." So I will do that.
that's so
No,
sweet. Thank you.
you're a I say veteran because you have a number of adult horror author. I hate that term, adult horror, because it sounds like you're writing porn horror, but adult horror author, and you're just about to release a young adult horror book. Um, so first of all, let's just start off. So Shiny Happy People is about what?
It's a very good question. Do I have an answer? It's like
I
my
wrote it so
riff
long ago, I
on
don't
Body
remember.
Snatcher.
Yeah.
Totally. I mean, it's basically my faculty, my like high
Mhm.
school spin on the pod people motif, the trope, pod trope. Um, Imagine like a designer drug that's kind of sweeping in through high schools, and it's like the new party drug, and kids are taking it, Snapchatting about it, getting on their social medias about it. And there's this one girl, one young woman by the name of Kira, who is noticing a lot of her friends and family start to slowly succumb to this new thing that's kind of on the market, on the street, and it's scary, scary things ensue. Huh? Huh?
Yeah.
Do you like that pitch?
Yes. That's great. I think it's a great explanation. I'll tell you right now, the body snatcher trope in the first place is great. There's obviously movies, books, all that stuff about it. I love that idea that it takes people a long time to understand. Wait, this is not the real person. This is something different. Where I'm thinking to myself,
Yep.
I'm like, if like my friend Paul, speaking of Paul, has an off day, I'm like, what's up with you, dude? What's going on? Like, what's go-? But yeah, in like
Are you
horror,
just
it
are you
takes
just like
forever.
basically like calling people out? Like,
Yeah,
are you a pod person?
yeah,
Like, you're
exactly.
acting differently today. Are
I
you
would
are you a pod person now?
I would like to think if I was in this book and I was in this story that I would have noticed it before some other people notice things. Like I think it's one of those things that just takes some people a long time, and I think that's the suspension of belief for horror. And you have to like, like I said, I walk in there. If you really know someone, like if I saw you, I don't even know you that well, but if I saw you on Wednesday and something was going on, I probably would know.
You'd
I'd
be
probably
like,
be like,
you're a pod
hey,
person.
yeah, exactly. You might be. We don't know. Maybe one of those things that we don't know. But no, that's awesome. I think that my point, I guess, that when I was starting that conversation to figure out what was the book about is that it's young adult. So
Yeah.
where did let's touch on that really quickly as we get into this conversation. Like, you have you mentioned a person who just had a birthday, a son who had a birthday. You have kid, you have offspring.
Mhm.
Is that a thought process that goes into this? Like trying to like gear some stories that are towards a younger generation. I mean, I have had this conversation with some people, and I just had it with actually Ryan from Gibson's. Is
Yeah.
I love the fact that I have some of my favorite horror authors like yourself, Chuck Wendig, Paul Tremblay, all writing books for different generations that I thought when I was growing up was basically like you read R.L. Stein and then you read Stephen King. Do you know what I mean? Like there was nothing for like legitimate. Again, I hate to say that like that because there are amazing young adult horror authors who are just writing young adult horror. That's what they
Yeah.
do. I'm more saying in the idea that I like get to read a acquired taste. I get to read a Ghost Eaters when potentially a young adult gets to read you, but more for geared towards them. So where did this come
Yeah.
from? How did this idea come to be? And like what made it say, I want to write something that's a little bit more young adultish?
Well, okay, a couple things. Uh, Straight out of the gate, like I remember, I mean, when I was growing up, there was very little
Mm.
YA. Like it was basically like you read scary stories to tell in the dark, and then you
Mhm.
leapt straight to Stephen King.
Yeah.
And I love that. Like I love that like King is there. Like I read him, I think like sixth, seventh grade. Like that was my kind of entry point into him. Um, but like books that were written and published in the 60s, 70s, 80s that were not considered YA would be considered YA
Mhm.
now. And I think it's just like they're like publishers, bookstores, they're just carving out shelf space that like this is kind of we're gearing this towards a targeted readership. And it's just a new place to put a book on the bookshelf and say like these books are for you. And I don't know how I feel about that, but it's you know I I
Yeah.
love that I get to write this book for teenagers. And
Mhm.
I, you know, a, a company came to me and said, "Hey, would you be interested in like writing for younger people?" And when someone asks that to me, like says like, "Do you want to do something?" My answer is just going to always be yes,
Well,
because why the heck not? Like
well, I
that
feel like I
that to
have that
me is
experience
like,
with you. I feel like when
uh,
I asked you to come to Galacticon, you're like,
yeah,
"Yeah, let's do this. Tell me when."
yeah. Life is short. Like what else am I gonna do? Be a good dad, good person? Like I'm just gonna be like I just want to like do stuff, and tell stories and tell
Mhm.
stories to for people. And I don't know, like the opportunity to do Shiny Happy People was someone else saying, "Hey, here's an opportunity. Would you be interested?" And for me, it's just like, are you fucking kidding me?
Yeah.
Heck yeah, let's do this shit. And just diving in. Should
It's
I be allowed to do it? I don't know, but I'm gonna do it.
well, so there's also the funny thing about like ratings and categorization like that, like YA. I think there's positives and negatives. Adam Caesar deals with this a lot with Clown in the Cornfield because Clown in the Cornfield in the series in the influencer book he wrote are like the most borderline to the age of 18 side of YA. Like it's like one small thing he could have done differently in that book, and it's like immediately adult horror. Influencers like opening chapter is so like to me as a 40-year-old male, I'm like holy shit. And that's like so he deals with the idea of like not very many older people might be getting it because it's in the YA section. But I also see the idea where, as a parent of someone between the ages of 12 and 18, bring a kid to a teenager to a bookstore, and we're like, oh, here's a section you can. We know for a fact that this section has been publishers and people and stuff like that have said this is good for you. So I can see that both sides of it, but also
Yeah.
like when I grew up in a church, right? And my dad would have like movie night, and they wanted to do movie night at the church for youth group, and they wanted to like, you know, not just watch, hey, Jesus, this, that, and the other thing. They wanted to watch like pop culture movies or movies that would be a wider range that would bring them in that were appropriate. And for some reason, my dad put Footloose like as a movie because of the rating. Like I don't think he did much research. He was just like he's seen the movie and stuff, but he just I don't think it clicked. And he's like, "Oh, PG, this would be great," or whatever in PG-13, whatever. And it's like, well, they like PG-13 movie, you can swear in it. There's like risque, like not full nudity, but you can like get like half naked kind of thing. Like it's one of those things where it was like, oh my god, this is not so. There is that section of like there is not like it's perfect. It still scared the shit out. Like, Shiny Happy People was frightening to me at 40. So it isn't
Yeah.
like it's like this perfect thing. When you get into horror, it's gonna be at least somewhat scary, and depending on your, I can read books like by Eric LaRocca and Haley Piper, and I can also read Shiny Happy People and still get the same at a different experience, but a similar experience out of it.
Can you imagine Eric LaRocca writing a YA or middle grade book? Like that would be astounding. I
Well, I
want to
mean,
read
it's
that
what did they, what did
book.
someone say to me the other day was like it's like adult horror, but they remove some of the violence out of it and remove some of the sexuality out of it, and I'm like, so Eric LaRocca's YA book is 3 pages. Uh, Eric just wrote
It's
the
the
book,
title.
and then
The title alone.
isn't this scary? We live in this world. I mean, that could be a book. Welcome to
Well,
2025, and that's it.
it's interesting that you mentioned like what they withhold from YA or middle grade. But like I've been recently reading a lot of middle grade fiction. Um, Paul Tremblay's book, which was great. But there's this new one that just came out recently called Broken Dolls by Ali Melanenko, and it is scary. It is written for young readers, like fifth grade to seventh or eighth grade,
Mhm.
like 9 to like 13, 14. It is terrifying, because it can't do the gore or gratuitousness. It can't do the violence. It withholds all of that, and in its place, it's nothing but tension. It's nothing but suspense. It's nothing but the dread of anticipation. And like that's scarier. I think violence and gore ends up like getting in the place and or getting in
Mhm.
the way of actual tension, of actual like fear. So yeah.
Well, I mean, you could make like super gory films or even books that just have very, very, very descriptive killings and slashings and murderings and sexual assault or anything like that in its horror. But yeah, you're right. You can make the suspenseful uneasiness of it. I mean, let's be honest, Psycho, the book and the horror is even the movie, because the movie is basically like a, a motion picture version of the book. I mean, that's an adaptation that's basically almost word for word in my opinion.
Yeah.
But it's a very scary movie. But it's, if you were to put it up against like Terrifier or any of those movies from now, it's like it's a different type of fear, and it's really, I mean, to be honest with you, when you watch the movie, the killings of the knife being like going like this, it's like very corny and like to me, I'm like, oh, that's not very scary because I've seen Terrifier, but it's a different type of fear and a different type of horror, and I think that, and that's a place for. I think there's a place for it. That's why one of my favorite books of all time, no joke, is Clown in the Cornfield, and it's not, I'm 40, it's not made technically for me, it's
Yeah.
made for someone of a younger generation. However, it's really trying to have people is made for people as young as 12, if that makes any sense. Like, it doesn't
Yeah.
mean that it's only people who are 12 to 18 will get something out of it. I think that you talk to anybody, I talked to Ryan from Gibson's, any of these people, they're like, that book's scary, but also approachable. And I think that's where it's a horror book that also can like cleanse my palate a little bit too, between the, if I'm reading Haley Piper and then Eric LaRocca. Like, it's like one of those like put Clay McLeod Chapman's Shining
Just
Heavens
put me in
right
the
in the
middle.
middle of that. And I laugh because I went to a bookstore of my 10 bookstores I went to last week. It's a used bookstore in Brunswick, Maine called Twice Told. And people donate their books, they sell the books, and then they donate the funds from the books to the library in Brunswick. And so over the past, I don't know how many
Oh,
years,
so
they've
cool.
raised $1 million for the library through this bookstore. And they said it's kind of funny. People actually buy books for $5 a hardcover. They'll read them and then they'll donate them back. So it's almost like a lending library that costs $5 to rent the book, which is awesome. But I was talking to the woman behind the desk checking out, and I was like going to see you and doing this horror thing and so on and so forth. And I had a Paul Dworin book that I found there that I couldn't find anywhere else. It was Stay Hidden or whatever. Paul's a mystery thriller author from Maine, writing about stories. This game warden in Maine who solves crimes and things like that. He reminds me honestly like of a Maine's 24, Jack Bauer, where like he gets himself into like these predicaments over and over again and saves the day. But Paul's like on book 15 of this series. So like at some point you're like by book 15 you're like, okay, already we understand that he's gonna save the day. No, they're great. I go, this is my palate cleanser, and she just laughs. She's like, you read a bunch of horror and then you read mystery thriller as your palate cleanser. You're like, okay, I got to tone myself down a little bit. And I was like, yeah, I mean, I don't know. I live a life of wanting to be scared and thrilled, I guess. And so I need something to cleanse my palate. And she's like, okay, whatever. To each its own. Some people will read romance to kind of cleanse their palate. I'm like, I don't know. I'm gonna read a romance horror, I guess, next summer to cleanse my palate, right? With your new
Yes,
coming book.
yes.
But yeah, so starting having people. I mean, it's so I haven't, and we talked about this. Is it harder to promote this book than your other books because of the YA attachment?
That's a good question. And I mean, I'm still in a kind of like, I mean, this book is like 2 weeks out at this
Yeah.
point, and I have no idea how the heck I'm supposed to like talk about this book, get this book out there. I'm feeling a little bit on my own right now. And, this is the third book that I'm putting out this year, which is absurd.
Hmm.
Um, but I don't know. Like I want to believe this book is going to find its readers. Um, I'm at a weird place where I just kind of like present myself and hope that whoever comes out wants to buy
Hmm.
the books that I have to offer. Um, I'm not so much kind of like making the kind of tactical move of like, this is how I'm going to promote this book. It's basically, here I am, here's the book, come read it, please. And, just hope for the best and just hope that word of mouth spreads and gets this book out there. Which is a
I
terrible answer, but
No, I
there I
understand
go.
what you're saying. That so that's funny how you mentioned third books. I mean, I feel like Saratoga Schaefer just posted something on their Instagram about how they have three books coming out this in 2026,
Yeah.
like January, July, and like October. And it just happenstance, like it was with two different publishers or three different publishers. It just happenstance it's all on this. And she was clarifying to people like they're not going to come up with books every three books a year. It's just not going to happen. It's just how it worked out, and that it's not very common nowadays. So that means a book a year, maybe a second book comes out because if you book, Wake Up and Open Your Eyes came out in January, right? So like you're talking like it's a chance it could have come out in December and it would have been a book last year kind of thing. But
Yeah, yeah.
and this one's coming out in November, so they're like it's like again pushing towards the end of the year. Um, but yeah, it's not typical. But I don't think that you would have been able to do. I think there's gonna be a built-in audience as a whole I mean, Chuck Wendig and Paul Tremblay write some pretty scary books, and I think that those books did pretty well. Another and Monster Movie because of the fact that I mean, Monster Movie was 100% not made for me, but I love Chuck Wendig, so I bought the book. And I'm a huge fan of R.L. Stein. That one to me had like massive R.L. Stein goosebumps vibes to it. Like this one does too. I feel like these books that are in that, like it just all I can really relate it to is goosebumps, if that makes any sense. I understand Shortwave Press's Killer VHS Sense, a series being related to Goosebumps for adults. But I feel like part of that's not just the stories themselves, but the idea of the formatting of it, of the book, the collection of it, the look the same, that kind of thing adds to this. But these books, I feel like
Yeah.
there's this. Oh, this reminds me of my childhood. But when you read a Goosebumps books, it's dumbed down. I hate to say that way, but it is. It's made for younger people. Where this is like you did write a story, like you normally write a story, a horror story, and then you maybe, like I said, didn't physically go, let's delete that line. But like you had yourself take some any of the violence that was in Ghost Eaters, for example, or Wake Up and Open Your Eyes, and toned it down a little bit to make it so that okay, well, now it's presentable to 12 to 17-year-olds. Um,
Yeah.
but I feel like you built
Did
an
it
audience.
feel does it feel like it's toned down? Like
I think if you were to read, I don't do this very often anyway. I wouldn't read a Clay McLeod Chapman book three times in a row. Like I would always, even if I'm planning, say I'm talking to you and I never read your stuff before, and I'm like, I got to read X, Y, and Z. I'm talking to the Chismars, so Richard and WH coming up here soon, and I read Widow's Peak and I read the Gwendy Button Buck series and stuff like that. But I was like, oh, I haven't actually read Chasing the Boogeyman and things like that. And I was like, oh, maybe I'll read Chasing and Becoming right after each other. I'm like, I still can't do that. I gotta put someone else in the middle because I think it again cleanses the palate a little bit. I think if you read Ghost Eaters and then read this, Shiny Happy People, you might go, oh, it's a little bit, there's a difference. But I feel like if you read you in the past and then are going to read this, I don't think you would. I don't think that if you didn't tell someone it was a young adult book, that they'd immediately go, this is young adult. That it might just be that you're not, you know, writing sex scenes into it and you're not writing these massive their head was decapitated and rolling across the floor kind of thing, bleeding from the eye and crawling to their death or whatever. I don't think people would notice it that much. I think that it's us that say it that way. And I think that the reason I even bring it up in this conversation is because I'm happy that it's in this category because of the future, because of my 4-year-old years from now, hoping that more adult authors write these books for younger generations so I can be like, let's read Clay McLeod Chapman together. And I read Wake Up and Open Your Eyes, and he reads Shiny Happy People. That's where I'm kind of like excited about it. Outside of that, I wish it wasn't a YA
Yeah.
title because then you're right, you might do better. And I don't want to say it's going to do bad, but it might do better without the restrictions of YA on it. I don't know. It's hard to say, Clay. I don't think it didn't scream that it was YA. How about that? Does that work? Is that a bit,
I
is that
totally,
can you put
totally.
that on the cover now? It doesn't scream YA.
Doesn't scream YA. I
This
mean,
is actually not terrible.
I think the biggest thing about YA is that I think the biggest thing about YA is that it ends up just being about high schoolers. Like if
Hmm.
your protagonist is of an
Yeah.
age that is younger than say their 20s, like it immediately becomes something else. Like
Hmm.
it is now kind of categorized as YA, which is it's interesting. But
I can see
I
that.
just wrote about
The-
high school students
I
doing
don't.
some freaky things.
I don't think so many people understand that. Like, I know what you did last summer. Like the Lewis Duncan, the book that the movie's based on is a young
Hmm.
adult book. It's not like, and it's different. Obviously, the movie is completely different. Honestly, it's like they took the name and a small like, oh, there was an accident and someone died, and that was like what they took from the book, and the rest of it's just like we're gonna make a
Yeah.
slasher because it's not a slasher really in the book. It's a slasher in the movie, but it's really not really a slasher in my opinion in the book. But yeah, so like if you think about it, we watch the movie, you're like, this is young adult. And maybe you'd say the same thing about Clown in the Cornfield. You'd watch that movie and go, "There's no way I'm showing this to a 12-year-old." Like, you know what I mean? Like, this is insane. But the book might be a little different. But you're right. It's really the age you're writing about. I never really kind of put
Yeah.
that together. That like a 12-year-old reading this book wants to hear about 12, 13, 14-year-olds, not about 40-year-olds. They're not going to relate to the person who's
Yeah.
like been married twice and lost their job and has to pay alimony and child support. They're not going to understand that as much. They might
Can you imagine?
understand that last part because they obviously maybe their parents aren't together anymore. But yeah, a kid worried about math tests and being popular in school and who they sit with at lunch is more important than or what movie they're going to go see on Friday night is more important than someone's like second divorce. We read an adult horror. And it's true. I mean, I think it's that you're right, which is cool. Like I said, I think the big thing to me though, the big takeaway was that like the future generations being able to read you and then get to graduate to reading Ghost Eaters and get and like if Stephen King, funny thing is Stephen King went back and wrote a book about a fairy tale, which with the Hansel and Gretel. It's not, he didn't go back and write some sort of young adult book. He went back and wrote something even younger, which is again still scary as hell.
Yeah.
That book is frightening when I read that book.
Stephen King is just basically mapping out, and this is what we all want to do. We
Yeah.
want to like kind of like create a body of work that starts at a certain place and ends at a certain
Mm.
place, and whether it's chronological or not, you're basically saying like you can join me here, here, or here,
Mm.
and they're out there for you if you want to kind of dive in.
So I mean, with this experience, was Shiny Happy People body snatcher style story based in this location, in this place, in this setting from the beginning, written with this idea of it being a YA book, or was it like after you wrote the base idea behind it, you're like, oh, this actually could work in this situation, or was there more to it than that?
Oh no, it was always going to be
Hmm.
YA. It
Okay.
was absolutely going to be YA. You know, the idea behind the book was, you know, this publisher, this company wanted to kind of like reach this specific audience, and they kind of tapped me as an author of, someone who's kind of written within this sphere, the adult sphere, and they're saying like, we think that voice, your voice, would be great over here for younger readers. And truth told, it was because of Ghost Eaters that I even got the invitation. Someone had read Ghost Eaters and said, we like what you do for older readers, and we think you could do that over here
Yeah, yeah.
for younger. Yeah.
That's awesome. And do you think Wake Up in Your Open Your Eyes has a modern day real life horrors attachment to it, right? We know that much that there's the fictional horrors that happen within the pages of the book, but there's also like nods and odes to the real life horrors that are happening in our world today. You do that in this too. I mean, obviously, I think the best horror stories are those ones where you're like brought into a fictional world, but also like you have to pause for a second and go, wait, that's a real thing. So like you deal with opiate addictions in this and the trauma behind that and stuff like that. You have this former big tobacco town, that kind of thing. So there is this like place where even a 13, 12, 13-year-old, 14-year-old could sit down and go, I can relate to the world that I see around me, but also this is a fictional story. Was that important to put into the story as well? I mean, that's who you are as an author, I'm guessing.
Absolutely. And I mean, I think for me, the body snatchers trope, like that
Mm,
idea is that metaphor, that central metaphor is something that can reinvent itself every decade, every generation. I mean, stemming back from the 50s to the 70s to the 90s, maybe the aughts, like, you have to ask yourself, like, what is the value of a body snatchers trope right now? Like, what does it speak to in terms of our culture, our kind of society at large in this moment? And for me, thinking about the trope, I did think of the opioid crisis and fentanyl and just the idea that like you can have a drug that is so powerful, so overwhelming that it literally changes your chemical composition, your brain patterns, your like who you are changes from the inside out because of this thing that you're told is harmless and will help
mhm,
you. And that's terrifying to me. So yeah, like I I wanted to write a body snatcher story, but it had to be about there had to be a value to it. There had to be
mhm.
something kind of key or central to it that like speaks to this particular moment. And I shot my shot, so we'll see
Do you, I mean,
if it
I
lands with people.
it may not be big similarities or big connections or big comparisons, but I feel like there was a hint of it, and maybe again because this book came out at the beginning of the year and your book comes out now, and I read them both in the same within a year of each other. There's like this is the younger version of Wake Up and Open Your Eyes, like in the sense that there is this other thing out, and like, and I don't know, I don't know why. Again, it's not like I want people to like these are connected or like this is like anything like that. I just think to myself like there's something out there that is they perceive and send out there that it's good. It's the news. It's we're telling the truth and all this other stuff, and then bad shit happens connected to it, and then the opioid part of it, same thing, in that sense, and bad shit happens to it. I just like I said, I don't.
Yeah.
It's if my son was not 4 but he was 13 or 14, I'd be like I could read Wake Up and Open Your Eyes, you could read what shiny happy people, and we're happy, and we're getting Clay's view on the world and that kind of stuff. Like I said, it's just kind of funny how it is. And again, maybe it's just because they bookend the year and I'm connecting the two. If Wake Up and You Open Your Eyes came out 5 years ago, would I even have thought of that? I don't know.
Oh my God.
It's
Bringing
funny though.
families
Yeah,
together.
yeah,
Families
families
reading
together.
together, stay together.
That's
Oh
your whole
God.
point, right? That's why you did this.
Well, I mean, to your point about the connective tissue
Yeah.
between Wake Up and Open Your Eyes and Shiny Happy People, I don't know if I would draw the comparison because I can't imagine the parent who's like, now that you've read Shiny Happy People, you get to graduate to Wake Up and Open Your Eyes. That is terrifying to me.
Yeah, it's
Um,
very
but I
terrifying.
do think that there's something to be said about having a healthy distrust of what we're sold,
Hmm.
what we're told on our screens, or the, like I don't want to be a conspiracy theorist here, but I do think there is something to be said about having a very sober-minded, healthy apprehension to what we're fed,
Hmm.
whether that's pharmaceuticals or news, or you just have to trust the source a little bit more these days because there's some scary elements out there.
And it's funny because I talk to some people out there. My brother and I have this argument all the time in the world of comics. Is that he's a huge big two Spider-Man, Superman, he wants to read those people, and he has like the more lesser known characters of that. So he's trying to tell himself that he's like fringe, but I'm like, dude, you read the big two, you really can't be fringe with the big two. It's not possible to be rated DC and Marvel and doing that. But then I'm like, I'm over here, I'm reading horror, I'm reading, mystery, I'm reading, sci-fi and all that stuff, but in the independent side of things, and a lot of those comics deal with real life issues based in this thing. So there are things that are real life things that we talk about, and things that you deal with on an everyday you see driving down the
Yeah.
street. But then they're fictionalized in horror story, and things like that. And he's like, how do you do that? I read comics to escape. I'm trying to escape the world we live in. And by reading Spider-Man and his troubles with school and with Mary Jane, gets me to escape that. And I'm reading things over here. I'm like, but I don't know. I feel like I get more involved and I get more attached to and engrossed in a book that has this. I mean, when like I just did
Yeah.
my favorite Blumhouse movies for Horror Week. We did the top 15 of my favorite Blumhouse movies, and Paranormal Activity falls on that list because when I left that movie, I was sitting in my car and someone walked behind the car and I jumped out of my seat. They were just walking to their car, Clay. Like they were leaving the movie. There was a bunch of people in the parking lot. But because of the fact that when you left that movie, you had this underlying feeling that it could be real. Like there was this sense of like this person's all security camera footage. It's just put together in a film and sold to you in a theater. But in the end, you're like, if you believe in the paranormal, this could be a real thing. And then someone else goes over here and goes, it's also security camera footage of what it's like to own a cat. And I was like, well, okay, that's too. I understand that too. If you have a cat, and then a lot of the same shit happens. But the books like that deal with something like opioid crisis or what the news is telling us or things like that makes me feel like, okay, I'm living in this world. This is what the world's like, and some crazy shit happens. And I know in the end, I finished the book. I'm like, this is fake. This is fiction. I don't have to worry about it. No one's actually going to be coming to my house, and no one. I don't have to worry about leaving the lights on. But there's something to
Yeah.
say about that. There's something about like the real world horrors mixed with fiction, and I just attached to. I really like.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like that is what the vehicle of the body snatcher metaphor is for. Like Red Scare, the 70s hippie, kind of like post hippie, kind of like me generation,
Mm.
or what is it? Whatever, I'm blanking on the name of it, but like, and then like the 90s kind of like happy, like kind of coming out of the Reagan era. Like these, like the body snatcher trope is so durable that it really adheres itself to each generation's like societal malaise. And I
Mm.
think the opioid crisis is ripe for this particular metaphor. And I just went for it.
Mm.
And I think like just think of like the next generation's body snatcher metaphor. Like what will be the next one and the one after that. Much the same way as like Night of the Living Dead, Day of the Dead, Dawn of the Dead, like all of those like living dead
Mm.
generate like zombies are perfect for it. Body snatchers are perfect for it. Like what are we feeling right now?
Yeah.
Let's talk about it, but let's do it with this candy coating of a monster or some sort of metaphor that allows us a chance to kind of like speak to these societal ills
Mm.
in a fun way.
And it worked. And I think that, like I said, I absolutely loved it. I've been touting this book as much as I can to people who I can talk to, and we'll repost when this episode releases. The day before, we'll probably repost the review again on social media because I want people to read this book, and I want people to know again it's young adults, but like we mentioned a little bit on there. And again, I want to reiterate the reason why I like that it's young adult is because you're writing for a generation that might not be, again, if your book was next to Ghost Eaters, some parent might be like, you're not reading any of that author. I am sorry. But because it's in that young adult section, parents might be a little bit more open to it. And I think that's, if they had that, there's a spinner rack in my local comic book shop that's for like kids' comics. But it's like, again, it's kids' comics, and then the rest of the comics are just there. But if a parent walks up and sees an X-Men comic and next to a Deadpool comic, some parents might not know the Deadpool comic is probably not for your kid or your young adult, but the X-Men comic might be. And I don't think there's enough delineation in comic book stores in that sense for that. It's like they're kind of like, I don't know what to do. But in the bookstore, at least you have that now. I think you have that ability that you could do this. And that's why I like it. What I don't like about it is that I want all of my people that are around my age to read this book because it's for you too. And I want that to be reiterated to people that like if you like
Yeah.
horror books from Clay McLeod Chapman, you're going to like this book in my opinion. And I want people to do that. And not just your books. I mean, because someone might not like your books, other books, but they might like this book. so so give it a shot. But and that's what
It's
libraries
a
are
good age
for,
drug.
right? If you don't want to risk spending money on a book that you might not like, rent it from the library and take it out of the library and do that if you need to. But no, I think that it's also for those people who want to try. I think a young adult might be the place to start if you don't know horror and you don't like horror or haven't tried horror. It maybe that's a place to start because it is one of those ones where you're like, you don't have to be as it's tense, but you don't have to be emotionally frightened by gore and blood and sex and things like that. Because I know there's some people who don't want that. Do you agree, or am I off base here?
I
You disagree completely.
I don't I mean like I it's funny, like I have a weird no, I have like a weird vibe with violence and
Yeah.
gratuitous gore.
Mm,
Like I know this is not going to hold any water for you or anyone listening to this, but like I am squeamish. Like I don't like too much. And the books like Wake Up and Open Your Eyes is a little bit of an exception to
yeah.
me because that book had to be
Hmm.
extreme and kind of gratuitous. Um, but I don't like going there uh as a personal choice. Like
Hmm.
I'm way too squeamish when it comes to that stuff. So
Well, maybe
uh
if you're writing it though, isn't it slightly different because you know it's coming?
I
I mean, you know it's coming, so it's kind of like when you're writing it versus when you're reading it. It's like one of those things that
I
like
mean,
I.
do I know it's coming?
Oh, that's a good point. I don't know. I don't know. It's different, but I, yeah, I understand what you're saying, and you're right. You're right. It's not that in there, but like there's creepiness to it that like I'm bringing up Ghost Eaters because it's one of my favorite books by you, and it's one I read recently again before I was seeing you. I just kind of was like, oh, I'm in a Clay McLeod Chapman mood. I need to read this book again. I listened to an audiobook, which was phenomenal too. I mean, I'm a big fan of audiobooks, and this Shiny Happy People have an audiobook coming too. Is that am I right?
Yeah,
Yes.
it
Yeah.
does. There's one coming.
Let's see. Look at that. Out at the same time, November 11th. I'm not gonna be able to. Dominique Salva. I can't. I'm not gonna be able to say their name. But that's the narrator of the book. But yeah, so I think that it's like I said, it's a place for someone to kind of. There's a spot for it, Clay. I think that's what I'm kind of trying to say is that by doing this, I compared Daniel Krause's, backlog of books that there's like they're in so many different places that there's different people that it can reach to, and I like the fact that you're within the horror genre still, but you're like, okay, I'm gonna do this. You have your short stories books like Acquired Taste. You're gonna do this, and you're gonna do this young adult book, and you're doing a horror romance coming out this summer or 26. Like you're meeting people. Talked to Becky Stratford the other day about meeting people where they are, and I think that's kind of cool too. It's like you're putting your tentacles in all these different places that can reach other people because maybe if you just stayed within the same lane, it might not be you might not reach as many people, and people won't get to read your tremendous works. And this is cool. I like it.
Mm,
Um, it you
cute.
mentioned promoting the book. I want to quickly get. We're almost finishing up here, but I want to promoting the book. Are you doing events for this book?
A couple, not a
Okay.
lot. I've got an event at the Twisted Spine. We're doing like a book release there, which will be fun. Um, and you know, I am doing a couple events, like maybe up and down the Northeast corridor. But for the most part, like I am. I mean, I would go somewhere if someone wanted
Well,
me, but like, I just at this point, like, I feel like I'm just like, hello, is no one out there? Does anybody want to read some books?
Well, I mean, I guess it would be is with 3 books in one year too. It's hard to say you're promoting a book too. Like if you're gonna do an event in December somewhere, it's like what's gonna be there is on a table. It's gonna be Wake Up and Open Your Eyes, Acquired Taste and Shiny Happy. It's like you're not doing a book maybe, but for Shiny Happy people, but like people are gonna be able to buy it at your events. It's the same like at your event you had a bunch of books on that shelf at Gibson's. It's not just Acquired Taste because you were there. That was the most recent book you were doing, and so there's that too. Like when you have a book a year or a book every couple of years, it kind of has to be surrounding that book. And this one might be just piggybacked onto any other events
Yeah,
that you do. Here you go, guys. Read this book over here.
yeah,
It's nice and shiny.
it's very shiny. Um, I do think that like the people who write one book a year and stick to that one book a year and just like pound that book for that year, like that's smart thinking. That's shrewd. I'm not smart and I'm not shrewd and I'm just like flailing like a madman, just trying to, beg people to pay attention and look at me, because I don't know what else to do. I don't know what else to do.
I, I will say too that a young adult. also puts it into a slightly different price category. So for those people over here trying to like, be frugal with their money and I have to buy three Clay McLeod Chapman books in 1 year, you save me a little money at the end of the year there. It's pretty good. Well, it's always like
It's
what
like
I
they
said,
know what
like
they're
if one
doing.
of those books is
Perfect for
only
Christmas.
paperback,
Stocking
it helps
stuffers.
too. Yeah, exactly. I've always said that. Like someone's like, "Oh, it's a paperback copy." I'm like, "Cool, it's 17.99. That's great. I don't have to pay the 30." I mean, I just had to buy King Sorrow for $40. So,
Oh my God,
but
books are getting so expensive.
it's so.
It's
But
intense.
I felt like what's funny about it is like it is, but so are comics, and you dive into that world too, and they're getting more expensive and cheaply made. At least books to me are still made the same quality they have been for a couple of years. Like the book, like Acquired Taste feels like you're getting it's worth $30. You know what I mean? Like you're getting $30. Nowadays the comics is $4.99 for what it originally was, a throwaway. It's not a throwaway item anymore, but it used to be. And I feel like they're getting back to worse than they were when they were a throwaway item, and their collectabilities to them. So there's certain publishers out there who are charging a little bit more, doing hard cover stock and nicer pages and things like that. But like it's a weird thing. But it's at least you feel like you're getting quality. If you get a hardcover copy, like this is gonna last a while. Like I can,
Built to last.
I can hold the door open with this one if I need to. Actually, this window over here by my desk doesn't stay open, so I'm just gonna take Acquired Taste and put it so that it stays open. Can't do that with a paper bag. No, so I'm finishing up here. So I'm so happy. So November 11th is when Shiny Happy People hits stores. I think everybody should buy it. I think it's a wonderful book, a body snatcher style story that deals with the opioid crisis as well. In my opinion, it's for all ages over age of 12. But it's great again if you have someone between the ages of 12 and 17 and you're looking for something cool to get them maybe for Christmas. It's a good time of year for that. It's worth buying in my opinion because I think it's wonderful. And then you can read it with them if you're like that's kind of a cool thing too. You could buy a copy for yourself and for your young adult. How about that? So there's two copies sold. And
That's the
hopefully
way. That's the ticket.
that's the way to do it. Maybe you can sell them. Maybe that's the way to do it in the future is to sell them in a pair of like a pair. You have to buy the two copies. It's like instead of $20 a copy,
For
it's
mommy
it's
and
30,
daddy and
30
for the kiddies.
the hardcover and the paperback. No. But are you gonna rate comics again?
Yeah,
You want if they ask
someone
you to?
invites me to. Um, yeah, like at this point, it's more about does Marvel still have my number? Oh, I would do it in a heartbeat. I'm just waiting for someone to say, "Oh,
Hey,
who was that guy who wrote that thing? We should maybe try to get him to do that thing again." Which probably means it's never gonna happen.
they forgot to put when they called
But
and you
yeah,
called them and your number was in the system and they forgot to put your number in their phone. And so it's there. So if they search for Clay, they'll find you, but it's not like you don't have to message you if you text you and be like, "Hey, this is Justin," just to verify that you know that who this number is because I know you probably didn't save it. Eh, that's what you have to do to Marvel. Hey, this is Clay.
new phone, who dis?
Hey, it would have been even crazy.
Old author,
Wait, you are
old author, who
crazy
dis?
because did your trade came out this year too. So technically, you had four books that
Four
came out this
bucks.
year.
Yeah,
The trade of Seance and the Asylum came out this year as well,
yeah.
which is pretty
God
cool.
bless it.
Okay,
I love that one. I miss that one. I want that
see,
one out there.
oh, Dark Horse, you need to do some for you need to do independent too.
Yeah.
Maybe we got a movie coming out for Ghost Years. What about an adaptation in comic book format?
God, I would love it. I mean, if someone wants to do Seance in the Asylum, like please, please,
Yeah,
please. Like that
yeah,
was
yeah.
built for film.
Film, yeah, exactly. What did I just read? Oh, Sisman Kradansky, who used to draw for Spawn with Todd. He has his own book called No Man's Land, and literally like 5 out of like the 20 reviews that was out for the first issue was like this was made for TV. It was like almost, and he like posted something with all of it. I'm like, is he saying that because it's like, hey, anybody out there, you buy my book for TV or whatnot? But yeah, it's
Yeah.
I like comics. I like books. I like everything. As long as you're writing something, I'm happy. So I have to wait until next summer to read your next book. That's fine. I understand, but we'll get there. You have one
It'll
book
be
coming
worth
out
it. It'll be worth the
next year.
wait, man. I
Is it
swear.
one in 2026? Is that the plan? Or two?
Two. Two. I got two. One's a
Really?
novella that comes
Okay.
out in April called
Okay.
Bodies of Work, which is a really weird kind of head cheese serial killer
Okay.
book. And then Devil Inside, my horror man's book, comes out in August.
Bodies of work, huh? Where's that coming from?
Titan.
Titan. Okay. Oh, okay. Yeah. Ooh, you got your Jordan Peele cover quote on there. I
God,
love
I
it.
will not let go of that fucking quote. I swear to God. It's a blessing, but it's like popped up on 3 books now, and I'm like, guys, people like
People will start to
that
notice it.
thing has been
It's this to me. What I'll compare it to is when someone goes, "What was that quote for? What book was that originally on?" Do you know?
wake up and open your eyes.
Okay, so a year or two from now, someone's like, "Okay, that book came out in 25." Like, okay, we need to like we understand. It's the same thing if I go to a restaurant. It was like voted best restaurant 1998. I'm like, okay, it's 28 years later. You're a different restaurant than you were then. More people have
Yeah.
reviewed your thing, or maybe they haven't. I don't know. Maybe no one's liked your book since that quote came out. No, it's true. It's awesome. But hey, you know what? I mean, Jordan Peele. Someone I guarantee you, someone gets a quote from Stephen King and they'll never stop putting it on anything they do. I've known people who have been compared to other authors who won't stop using that quote because it's like, well, I'm the next Clay McLeod Chapman, and people need to know that. So, hey, it is what it is.
God,
People have been stupid enough to put
pity the
my
poor
quotes in the back of
person.
their books. So,
I just want to go on record as saying if anyone out there says they want to be the next me, I would encourage you
bye.
not to because that is not a selling point. No one that is like you may lose readers more than you will gain. So find another folk to glom onto because man oh man, this is for your sake more than it is mine.
You're like writing
Trust
an
me.
email back to your publisher saying, "Can you please not put that on the cover? Don't do that. Please don't do that. I don't want that." No, I don't know. I enjoy. You're a multifaceted person. You're very good at speaking, and going to your events is a lot of fun. Reading your books is amazing. I enjoy talking to you and having conversations with you. I appreciate you taking a break from writing your next award-winning book to come in here and chat with me on the podcast. And I will see you again because you're everywhere. So there's that too.
Yeesh.
And I'll be a crazy person and hit like 15 bookstores because I'll come to New York City at some point and I'll hit like 15 bookstores on the way there because it's further away. Do an event down here with you. But
Make the pilgrimage. Come on down.
I am. My parents live in Connecticut, so it's a little easier. I could just go there and then come down that way. So there's a stop on the way, and I could drop the kids off on the way, and not have to have them with me. No, but my wife and I went to New York City last in 2022, and we got COVID. So thank you, appreciate it.
Oh.
No, I didn't get it from New York City. We actually got it. My son had swimming class the morning of our trip to New York City, and someone there must have had it because we ended up testing positive at the end of the week that we were there. So obviously, it was taking time to grab hold of us, and it was we got our vacation in, and then we ended up having to take another vacation afterwards. We were off work for 2 weeks because of it, but yeah. So I'll be back. It's fun. I like New York City. But hey, guess what? Our time is up here, Clay, and I appreciate everything that you do in the world of horror. You're a voice of horror right now, as much as you don't want to hear that. And I'm glad you took some time out to chat with us here on the podcast, and we'll definitely have you back on in the future. Does it sound good?
Thank you, Justin. You are the best. I love you. This is the voice of horror coming at you live. Thank you,
Okay,
thank
let
you,
me
thank
take that
you.
back. I don't want that to be the voice of horror.
This
No,
is the future of horror speaking to you. Thank you for listening to me.
it's the voice of nightmares right there. Thanks, Clay. I appreciate it very much. November 11th. Grab shiny happy people. Thanks, Clay.
Thank you.